I bring you greetings from Amrita Hospital, Faridabad. The topic for my discussion is stress and its impact on health. The World Health Organization has defined stress as any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. What is stress? As defined by Hans Sell, who is known as the father of stress, he said that stress is the spice of life. Who would enjoy a life of no runs, no hits, and no errors? Hans Sell was an Austrian endocrinologist, and he found a stress condition called the general adaptation syndrome. Due to paucity of time, I'll skip his experiment. Now we have what are called stressors. Any event or circumstance that causes stress is called a stressor. For example, I was asked to prepare for this lecture. Now, it's a simple thing to prepare for a lecture, but some of us might feel so stressed. Where do I have the time? How will I speak? How will I face the audience? And others, it may not matter to them. It may be just a part of their life. Therefore, the event or circumstance does not cause stress. It's our perception and the way that we respond to that event that causes stress. There are different types of stressors: biological stressors, illnesses, disabilities, injuries, environmental stressors, poverty, overcrowding, natural disasters, cognitive stressors, where we find it difficult to solve a problem or we find it difficult to come up with creative projects, or life-changing stressors like the death of a loved one, a divorce, or trouble among the family and friends. This diagram tells us the responses to stress. It just shows us that the cerebral cortex, which is in the brain, of course we are all doctors, we know this, it perceives the stressor, and then we have the hypothalamus, which sends a signal to the pituitary gland, and from the pituitary gland the signals are sent to the adrenal glands, which are endocrine glands, which are situated on top of the kidneys, and these produce the hormones. From the adrenal cortex we have the stress hormone called cortisol, and from the adrenal medulla via the sympathetic nervous system we have epinephrine and norepinephrine. These are hormones which are called the stress hormones. Now we have three stages, the physiological stages of stress. The first is called flight or fright. This is the immediate response to stress, where the body releases epinephrine or adrenaline. This increases our heart rate and breathing and diverts the blood flow to our muscles so we can fight or run away. Examples are, if we see a tsunami or a landslide or a flood coming, we just run, we don't think. Stampedes, these are examples of flight or fright. The second is resistance. This is our response to prolonged stress. Here the increase in the hormone cortisol converts the protein into glucose, which supplies us with extra energy to overcome this stress. But continuation of this phase can lead us to the third phase, which is called exhaustion. It's the burnout or the adrenal fatigue. Here the cells and the organs can no longer function properly, and this can result in serious diseases. This is a diagram of the general adaptation syndrome, which is identified by Hans Sell, and it just shows that our first stage, when the stress is less, and then afterwards when the stress increases and we cope up with the stressor, and then we get exhausted, that's our final. The reserves are depleted. The stress symptoms, effects on the body, sometimes, we may be having certain symptoms. For example, a headache, which may be irritating us, and we may think that this headache is actually due to some disease. But it may not be disease. It may be that we are just stressed out, or we are not able to sleep, or we have decreased productivity at work. The common effects of stress can affect our thoughts, our feelings, and our behavior. Being able to recognize them can help us to rectify the problems. But if stress is left unchecked, then we can develop problems like high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes mellitus. There are certain common signs of stress like headache, forgetfulness, difficulty in concentrating, inability to cope, muscle tensions, pains, restlessness, changes in appetite, overeating or undereating, digestive problems, irritability, insomnia, fatigue, anger, social withdrawal, anxiety. We can have lack of motivation or change in sex drive. There can be high blood pressure, palpitation, and there can be increased use of drugs, tobacco, alcohol, and caffeine. There are two main types of stress, the acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress is a reaction to an immediate threat, which may be perceived as danger, and the symptoms may occur after a patient or a person has experienced near death or witnessed death or has a serious injury or sexual assault. The stressors may be excessive noise, crowding, or hunger. Then we have this term, what we call the post-traumatic stress disorder. This is the same thing when there's been exposure to a life-threatening situation, but it could be like after a robbery or an aggravated assault, again a sexual assault, rape, combat veterans, or survivors of disasters. Chronic stress. Modern life possesses ongoing stressful situations that are not short-lived, and the urge to act must be suppressed. Stress then becomes chronic. Now, this chronic stress, this may lead to cardiovascular disease, upper respiratory tract diseases, progression of HIV to AIDS, exacerbation of autoimmune diseases, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, and obesity. Now, we have chronic stressors. Continuous high-pressure work, long-term issues with relationships, loneliness, persistent financial problems. A term called eustress. This is a good kind of stress. Something pleasing will result at the end of the situation. For example, planning a wedding, planning a party, or completing your last semester before graduation. Distress, a word that we have all heard, a displeasing kind of stress, again associated with death of a loved one, natural disasters, or financial problems. There is a way of measuring stress, daily hassle scale for minor but frequent stress, and then we have the social readjustment rating scales. It measures the impact of various life events. We have face-to-face interviews and life experience surveys. Daily hassles give us, there are a few points under this. These are the ones which occur in our day-to-day life and only recorded by self-report questionnaires, like maintaining a home, health concerns, too many things to do, crime, rising prices, property, taxes, investments, job-related. Then in this social readjustment rating scale, this was developed by Holmes and Rahe Stress. The 10 most stressful life events are death of spouse, divorce, marital separation from mate, detention in jail or any other institution, death of a close family member, major personal injury or illness, marriage, being fired at work, marital reconciliation with mate, and retirement from work. These are the 10 top ones. But this is the scale with all the points, and they've got points. These are all the other points in this Holmes-Rafe scale. Now, this is, if we calculate less than 150 life change units, there's a 30% chance of developing a stress-related illness, 150 to 299, 50% chance of developing an illness, and 300 life change units is 80% chance of developing an illness. These are the common diseases that might occur due to stress: cardiovascular disease, strokes, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, atherosclerosis, asthma, upper respiratory tract diseases, progression of HIV to AIDS, exacerbation of autoimmune diseases, colitis. Now, stress and immunity. Stress weakens the immune system of the body by diverting the energy required for its functioning to deal with stress. As I mentioned, cortisol, a hormone which is released during the stressful times, affects the immune system by preventing the production of cytokines. But during chronic stress, the cortisol is overproduced, causing fewer receptors to be produced on immune cells, so that the inflammatory process, which is the basis of most of these diseases, they cannot be controlled, and that is what results in the diseases. So stress can cause the chronic heart disease, it can cause the clogging of the blood vessels, it can increase the blood cholesterol and the triglycerides, it can cause high blood pressure, it can cause diabetes mellitus, it is also connected with cancer. The hormones released during stress response can alter the number and types of the immune cells, such as the T cells and natural killer cells produced by the body, and increase inflammation. The basis is increasing of inflammation. Since immunity and inflammation affect cancer, stress is extrapolated to affect cancer on this basis. Stress and headache, stress and asthma. Asthma can cause stress, but stress can also precipitate an asthmatic attack by releasing pro-inflammatory cytokines. The irritable bowel syndrome, patients who complain of sometimes they're constipated, sometimes they have diarrhea, they seem to have continuous abdominal pain. This is there because of the disturbance in the gut-brain axis. Some other common stress-related disorders are ulcers in the stomach, chronic fatigue syndrome, menstrual cycle disorders, memory loss, insomnia, and kidney diseases, which may be secondary to hypertension. Now, stress at workplace in industries. Workplace and mental health of the workers have a complex relationship. Work itself can have a positive impact on the mental health of a person. Why? Because they give it job security, time structure, social contract, organizational abilities. These can elevate a person's sense of well-being. So it's positive. But sometimes the stress can disrupt work, increase absenteeism, industrial accidents, irresponsibility and violence, decrease productivity and profits, as well as costs to deal with the problem, all eat into an employer's economic viability. Depression and anxiety patients may have occupational role dysfunction, and stress at the workplace may create a very unhealthy environment. Mentally healthy workplace has high productivity levels and is efficient and is open to discussions about mental health issues. Indian professionals, they suffer higher stress than most people globally. Prolonged isolation, social isolation, series of lockdowns and restrictions, continued uncertainty due to the pandemic, and rising levels of mental stress have negatively impacted working professionals in India, according to a study by Oracle and Workplace Intelligence, an HR research and advisory firm. There were certain challenges, 2 minutes? There were these challenges during the pandemic in which, because Indians are not used to it, the remote working is more common in the West, so Indians had to take on a new type of job with women taking on more responsibilities. The stress at work, excessive workload, long duty hours, competition and rivalries, lack of support, changes within the organization, insufficient training, job insecurity, deadlines, and working from home. The management of stress is exercise regularly, healthy, balanced diet, plenty of sleep, avoid tobacco use, excess caffeine, alcohol, and use of illegal substances. And then from the psychologists, we have the cognitive behavioral stress management. Just relax. This is the worst advice to receive if you are under a lot of stress, but it's very important. Activities that help you to naturally relax are progressive relaxation, yoga for the mind and body relaxation, meditation, massages, time management, and set your priorities. Sleep is very important, a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of undisturbed sleep. Good nutrition. There are some inactive ways to manage stress. Watching TV, surfing the net, playing video games. The above may seem relaxing, but may increase stress over the long term. Now, prevention of stress in industrial workers is employee-friendly policies, safety at workplace, timely recognition of employees' contribution, motivation and incentives, timely appraisals, watch for any decrease in productivity of any employee, watch for any increase in intake of tobacco, alcohol, or illegal drugs, have an in-house industrial psychologist whom employees can approach, or have a psychologist empaneled with the factory or the company. When to seek help? We cannot control the world, but can control our response to the stressors. Take care of your health, ensure that you have an emotional support structure, be it family, friends, or a counselor. Help is available to reach out to us if you feel your stress or anxiety levels are becoming unmanageable. Thank you.